Hello class, Mom says here, signing on. In this tutorial, we will learn about the use of the if, elif, else statements to add decision logic to your Python code. Also, you will learn to create decisions in a Python program using different forms of if-else statement. Decision making is required when we want to execute a code only if a certain condition is satisfied. The if, elif, else statement is used in Python for decision making. So, what are we waiting for? Let's begin. Using the if, elif, else statement is a vital part of building virtually any meaningful program. You can use it to automate complicated decision logic so that it can be applied repeatedly and consistently to your user input or data. When you use the term code logic or decision logic, you're referring to our ability to imbue your program with the ability to make a decision based on the inputs. Based on the decision, you can instruct the Python interpreter to run some code and skip over other code. To branch the execution of your code depending on Boolean expression, you'll use the if statement along with optional elif and else statements. A Boolean expression is any code that returns a Boolean value. A Boolean value is either true or false and is its own data type in Python, just like a string and integer. You'll use a Boolean expression to evaluate whether two values are equal. Let's start with a simple example of an if statement. Look at your screen here. Here we have value equals 7. If value equals 7, print the value is 7. Otherwise, print finished. There are three parts to the if statement. We have the if keyword here. We have the Boolean expression. In our example, value equals 7. And then we have the required colon character here. What comes next is just as important. The next line must contain a code block that runs if the Boolean expression evaluates to true. So since this is true, in Python, a code block is defined by using indentation. That is why we have indentation here. In this case, we use the tab key to insert 4 individual spaces. This indentation tells the Python interpreter that this code belongs to the if statement. And of course, it should run when the Boolean expression evaluates to true. If the Boolean expression evaluates to false, all of the indented code should be ignored by the Python interpreter. This line. When you run the code, you should see the following input. If the statement is true, our output would be the value is 7, finished. Here. To see how this code operates when the Boolean expression evaluates to false, modify the first line of code settings value to string 6. Change it into this value equals 6. Do not forget the single quote. So when you run the code, you'll see the following output. finished. The line of code beneath the if statement is ignored because the Boolean expression values to false. This was ignored in our example. The final line of code that prints the term finished runs because it isn't indented beneath the if statement. Here. Understood? Python supports the usual logical conditions from mathematics, such as A equals B, A not equal to B, A less than B, A less than or equal to B, A greater than B, A greater than or equal to B. So they are just an example. These conditions can be used in several ways, most commonly in if statements and loops. An if statement is written by using the if keyword, as I was saying earlier. In this example, we use two variables, A and B, which are used as part of the if statement to test whether B is greater than A. A is 33 and B is 200. We know that 200 is greater than 33, and so we print to screen that B is greater than A. Here. Python relies on indentation, white space at the beginning of a line, to define scope in the code, as I have mentioned. If statement without indentation will raise an error. Always remember that. Indentation is very important in Python. Now always remember to avoid syntax error. Always remember our Python if statement syntax. This one. Here, the program evaluates the test expression and will execute the statement only if the test expression is true. If the test expression is false, the statement is not executed. In Python, the body of the if statement is indicated by the, again, always remember it is indicated by the indentation. The body starts with an indentation and the first unindented line marks the end. And not forget the indentation. Python interprets non-zero values as true. None and zero are interpreted as false. So those are just reminders. Got it? The elif keyword is Python's way of saying if the previous conditions were not true, then try this condition. Something like that. In this example, A is equal to B. Look at your screen. A is equals to B. 33 is equals to 33. So the first condition is not true. It says B greater than A, so it's not true. But the elif condition, A equals B, obviously it's true. So we printed the screen, A and B are equal. The else keyword catches anything which isn't caught by the preceding conditions. Look at your screen again. In this example, A is greater than B. 200 is greater than 33. So the first condition is not true. It says b greater than a. So this is not true. Also, the elif condition is not true because a is not equals to b. 200 is not equal to 33. So we go to the else condition and print that a is greater than b. So that is why we have this output. Now, you can also have an else without the elif, just like the example we have here below. The elif, or rather else if statement, is another optional statement that can be added below an if statement. To test another related Boolean expression, use the elif statement. If the Boolean expression evaluates to true, the indented code below it runs. All code blocks that belong to other if, elif, and else statements are ignored, of course. And just as before, all indented code below the elif is part of the code block that runs if the Boolean expression evaluates to true. You can use as many elif statements as you need actually. If you use an else statement, it must come after all elif statements. So the elif comes first and then followed by the else. And remember that just like the if statement, there are three parts to the elif statement. It must begin with the keyword elif, as shown in our example here. Must include a Boolean expression. So this is our Boolean expression. Must terminate by using colon keyboard symbol. And we have here, you can see the colon keyboard symbol. Okay? Now, what is a Python nested if statements? We can have an elif, if elif else statement inside another if elif else statement. This is called nesting in the computer programming. Any number of these statements can be nested inside one another. So indentation is the only way to figure out the level of nesting. They can get confusing, so they must be avoided unless necessary. You can have if statements inside if statements. Again, remember, this is called nested if statements. So look at your screen. We have here a program. We input a number, check if the number is positive or negative or zero, and display an appropriate message. This time it is using nested if statement. Num equals float input, enter a number. If num is greater than or equal to 0, print positive number. If num equals 0, print 0. Else, if none is a negative number, then print negative number. To see the difference, look at the sample output here. If the user enter a number 5, the text positive number displays on the screen. Since 5 meet our condition statement here, num greater than equals 0. Now, if the user input negative 1, the text negative number displays on the screen. Since -1 does not meet this conditional statement, num greater than equals to 0. It does not meet this conditional statement, num equals 0. And so the text negative number is displayed on the screen. But if the user input 0, then what happens is that it would meet this line, num equals 0. And so the text 0 displayed on the screen. And that explains this sample code of nested if. Okay? In Python, we have the so-called shorthand if. If you have only one statement, one statement to execute, you can put it on the same line as the if statement. Just like what we have example here on the screen. First, sample program. If A greater than B, print A is greater than B. Since A is greater than B, 200 is greater than 33, then the output would be A is greater than B. As you can see, the declaration of the statement is on the same line. One line if statement, should I say. Another example of the shorthand if-else. If you have only one statement to execute, one for if and one for else, you can also put it all on the same line. Look at your screen again. This is our example. Print A if A greater than B, else print B. Since A is equals to 2, B equals 330, obviously B is greater than 2. Therefore, as expected, our output would be B. Again, you can write it on one line if-else statement. This technique actually is known as ternary operators. Again, ternary operators or conditional expressions. Now, you can also have multiple else statements on the same line. Example, print A if A greater than B, else print equals. If A equals B, else print B. Since A equals 330, B equals 330, so they are both equal. So what will happen to our output? Of course, our output would be equal. So again, this is an example of one line if-else statement with 3 conditions. Alright? The word AND. The AND keyword is a logical operator and is used to combine conditional statements. Just like in our example here, test if A is greater than B and C is greater than A. Look at your screen. So since A is 200 and B is 33 and C is 500, as expected, our output would be both conditions are true. 500 is greater than 33, and rather 200 is greater than 33, and 500 is greater than 200. Okay? Another logical operator is the OR, the use of OR. Here. The OR keyword is a logical operator and is used to combine conditional statements also, just like AND. We have here the example, if A greater than B or A greater than C. And we still have the same sample value. A is equals to 200, B is equals to 33, and C equals to 500. So what would be our output? A, 200 is greater than B, 33, or A, 200 is greater than C, 500. Obviously, our output would be at least one of the conditions is true. So that is the effect of using OR. Only one condition is being tested. And now, here is the challenge for this video lectures. The challenge is branch code execution based on user input. So you are tasked to write a short program that prints one of several messages to the user based on their input. First, prompt the user about whether they want to continue. If the user responds with either no or in, print the phrase exiting. So this is one possible output, but you can be as creative as possible and as user-friendly as possible. Sample output: would you like to continue? Now if the user input is no, print exiting. Now if the user responds with either yes or Y, print the phrases continuing and complete. So match the following output in this yes scenario. The user entered yes when prompted. Now, this is a possible output of your Python program. Would you like to continue? If the user's input yes, then the text continuing and complete will be displayed on the screen. But if the user responds with anything else, print the phrase please try again and respond with yes or no. So you could match the following output in the last scenario. Just like this one, for example, if the name of the user input is Bob, the user entered Bob when prompted. For example, would you like to continue? So this is the user input Bob, not yes or no. Then the output would be please try again and respond with yes or no. So that is our challenge for this video lectures. This code is only one possible solution because you didn't specify that you had to use the logical operators here. So it's just an example. You could have solved this challenge by using nested if statements instead. So recall our lectures about nested if. Or you could have checked for the no scenario before the yes scenario. You might have selected a different variable name to store the user's input. You change the variable name. Then if you match the expected output in the challenge, then you were successful. Okay? Again, do not forget to name your Python program with your last name first. Also, do not forget to insert a comment in the source code with your name as an author. So always remember that when you are doing your Python program, that is again for your protection. So what you see on the screen is not a complete code because I want you to be a Pythonista, a Python programmer, not an encoder. So I'm not giving you all the complete source code. So it's up to you to find out. And again, you can rewrite the code, go beyond more than what is expected, and be as user-friendly as possible. When we say user-friendly, when the end user ran the program, even if the end user is not a programmer, he could easily understand what to do next. Okay, that is what we mean by user-friendly. So, good luck for your output. I know you can do it. So, believe in yourself. And that ends our discussion. Thanks to Microsoft Educator Community, W3 Schools, and Programs for the input. This is Mom Says saying, stop saying I wish, start saying I will. Yes, you can do it. That's it. Watch out for more video lectures. God bless everyone. Thank you for watching. This is Mom Says, signing off.